What? You look like you've seen a ghost. Jokes aside, I have no idea how I got here, and I don't know how to replicate it. So you're kind of just stuck with this cosplay of Danny Phantom. Either way, we're kind of late, so new video. I've been waiting to play this game for years. Specifically, ever since I saw Happy play it a while back. VR games are usually fun, but the thought of a fully fleshed VR loot-based RPG in a medieval setting where I can get lost in for hours leveling up whatever I want while driving skeletons into extinction by myself or a party of 4, sign me up. Unfortunately, I didn't have an index, so even if I wanted to play it, I couldn't. So I forgot about it. Until they pulled up out of nowhere with the steel chair and dropped in on PSVR 2. What? What am I doing here? Going through the tutorial, it was clear that they were going for an eerie atmosphere. I'm not afraid to admit it. I'm a scaredy cat most of the time, and the amount of startled jumps I went through in just the tutorial is kind of embarrassing. Regardless, I was excited. Being able to battle enemies and pretend I'm a swordsman or a wizard, I couldn't look more forward to it. As I was being taught the mechanics, one thing became very clear. You can't do actual damage by pretending your weapon is a tennis racket. Now, to do actual damage, you have to swing the weapon at a considerable speed. You'll know when you've done so because it makes a swoosh sound. Besides that, the tutorial teaches you climbing in certain structures, dashing, treasure chest mechanics, and more. Dark Souls brain kicked in, and I tried to check if it was a mimic. Going forward, I fought one of the intended group fights, and it was quite the workout, even if it was just 2 enemies. There may be simple patterns for simple enemies, but fighting multiple at once brings in a new dynamic. At this point, I was only invested into the gameplay and the general vibe, but I wasn't fully hooked. I mean, eerie atmosphere and all these jumps are kinda bad for my heart. The combat was fairly simple so far, and this goblin looks creepier than the skeletons I fought so far. Until suddenly. Even while out of breath, that was one of the coolest fights I've had so far in a VR game. Freeing the gremlin, the tutorial finally came to a close, and I was left absolutely stunned. That was just the combat aspect of the game, and I was 1000% on board. So I headed straight into character creation. Allotted the stats 50-50 for variety and headed right in. There's a handful of things to do at camp, several NPCs to do quests for, a variety of supplies, and a campfire. And the campfire is where you regen your health and mana slowly, which I kinda love the fact that it's a little slow, because it gives you time to breathe, to get your bearings before inevitably returning to the battlefield. Once engaged into other enemies, that's when the loot aspect made its appearance. By killing enemies, you gain a variety of things: experience, weapon experience, gold, and finally, loot. Loot has a variety of rarities, as it goes with the standard looting experience, which also have passive buffs. There's a lot of things I didn't understand, and I kept dying to these creatures for a while. It was time for a change of pace. It was time to test out the multiplayer. And so I searched for a lobby with a person who was roughly the same level as me, in the hopes that they had some sage wisdom they could bestow upon me and suddenly make me better at the game. And so I found one, eventually, in the form of Waffle Thief. I'm honestly kind of jealous. That's a phenomenal name. After introductions, turns out they were a new player of sorts. They knew quite a lot more than me, but were still figuring things out as well. Sitting in the camp for a while, I learned how in depth this game really was. Secondary stats, skill trees, alchemy, salvage, potion making, resource gathering, woodworking, and smithing. All preparations for your next adventure. It was eye-opening how much you can actually do in this game, and how genuinely rewarding it feels to do so. After investing time in learning how magic works,
So hold. What you got there? No. Now it don't gotta be like this.
I managed to figure out the basics and I was set to go. Oh, and I also got really lucky and got a legendary at the very beginning.
Oh, you got a legendary thing. From a fucking common drop. Let's see what you get. Oh, that's fucking sick. That's a... That's like a legendary drop. You can just randomly get that.
The first day was more learning the game than anything else. So the next day I did a little recon on my own. I wanted to explore the area, get a lay of the land. A big mistake, by the way, because I found a mini-boss and, well, I couldn't retaliate at all. I was in the defensive the entire fight, and it was the most exciting thing ever for me. You mean that I'll get good enough and possibly fast enough to defeat this guy later? I can't wait. But it became blatant that I was not nearly prepared for this fight, so I went elsewhere. Upon some more exploring that day, I found a dungeon and it was way bigger than I expected. By this point, magic was getting a tad boring and I didn't want to risk dying, so I waited for my friend to log back on at a later time. Once they were on, however, I accessed new types of magic that left me in shock. Unfortunately, by this point, some overpowered kids joined the public lobby, killed the boss, and kinda softlocked us in the process. So, yikes. But honestly, it didn't discourage us one bit, because that just meant we could play the game for longer. And with the knowledge we had now, we got our stuff back and more in half the time. There's still some things I wish they would fix, like collisions. One of the consequences of a swing to deal damage system is that you get less room to goof around with and slightly less accurate hitboxes. Another example, piercing damage doesn't work as well as it should. Using the piercing part of your weapon should leave the weapon stuck and require some effort to pull it back. That's not always the case. Same with hatchets and axes. They should kind of get stuck on the enemy sometimes, and by sometimes I mean more than 2% that what has happened throughout our playthrough. And most importantly, Well, for me, I wish there were more int-based weapons, other than the wand. Because magic is cool, and having a magic sword or great sword or something like that would be pretty nice, rather than having to rely on my wand as a blunt weapon when I run out of mana. All I'm saying is, add the Moonlight Greatsword, please, I'm begging you. So, to end this rambling, what are my final thoughts on the game? Well, I can't really give you conclusive thoughts on it, since I haven't finished it. But what I can say is that I've had an amazing time playing this game.
Woo! You know what? Since I'm feeling generous today, I suggest you go first. You know what I'm saying? Alright, get in there, buddy. You'll be fine.
And while writing this script, I've wanted to go back to playing it so many times and try out different styles of combat after Magic. I just think it's a surprisingly fun VR game, more than I thought it would be. And that's all it really needed to be. Anyway, see you guys soon, and take care of yourselves. I'm off to play this game for hours on end, oh my god.